Call our regular meeting to order. A recording and/or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, which may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Start by calling the roll. Jessica?
Here.
Charlie?
Here.
Vladimir?
Here.
Steve? Here. I am also here. All board members are present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to D3 agenda approval. Would any board members like to provide comment on the agenda? Hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented, made by Vladimir, seconded by Shally. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. D4 closed session reports. No reportable action was taken in closed session. D5 recognition of retiring employees.
All right, well, we are.
We're not clapping because you're.
Thrilled to honor so many outstanding LASD employees. So we're just going to go in alphabetical order tonight. We did a little bit at the picnic. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Chris, who were able to honor our folks in front of the picnic. But this is really an opportunity for the board and the district to say thank you all so much for your service. So alphabetically, we are going to start with Mr. Julian. Julian has been principal at Loyola for 6 years now. We are so thankful. He spent another year at Covington as a teacher, but we are so thankful for the work that Rich has done for our district, for the Loyola Lions. He is loved by his staff. This was a tough decision, but we're here to support you. Rich is going to come back next year and do a little side gig for us throughout the year after he enjoys his Hawaiian vacation on his first day of school. Thank you, thank you. Amazing. Mr. Kane, you're next. Taught in LASD for 34 years. He is incredible. He started out as part of our district elementary PE program, but has spent the bulk of his career over at Block, met the love of his life at Block, Cindy Kane, and has been an amazing teacher, an amazing coach, and just a great supporter of students. We're going to really miss you.
I want to say because of 35 years ago, whenever it was when LAF decided to help, expand the elementary PE program to the K3 program. They had started the 4-6 a few years earlier than that. That was what brought me over here. And it was, I had a great career here, and it was more for that. I'm sure I'd be somewhere else and I will not have two great kids and had a great career through LASD. So again, I thank you. Thank you for supporting again the physical education and what things that you support. Yeah. So thanks.
So Michelle Landreth, another. For 21 years. When I knew Michelle, she was the clerk in the front office and was an incredible member of the front office team. And then since then has actually expanded her role to the library program at Block and has really done such great things. And it was so fun to see a little spark of joy as you moved over to the library. Michelle, you had a huge impact on students. Thank you so much for everything. Laurel McNeil. 21 years in LASD. Fun fact, Laurel and I began teaching together in Cupertino, oh, so many years ago,
Yes.
the first year of teaching together. Laurel is a huge part of the Oak staff and Oak community. I know you are beloved by that entire place. From every level, you've been a huge part of the sixth grade team. You've been LATA president. We've been through a lot together, Laurel. Still am a little, whatever, yeah. But Laurel, you are amazing and you are going to be really missed. Thank you so much for your.
Miss PSD, I will miss all of the amazing people that I have worked with over the last 20 years, 21 years. And I've been in the same classroom for
I
18
know.
years. Which is brand spanking new. So it's, I do love sixth graders.
It's the best grade.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, no. For 18 years. What I love about Terry is many things, but one, Terry is a utility player. Every grade level, every year, I'm gonna be in second, I'm gonna be in fourth, I'm going to third. And Terry does it with a smile. She comes by the CNI office probably twice a week. When Terry has questions, she wants answers and she wants to full feature of Covington School. You're gonna be so missed, Terry. I miss you tremendously and thank you for everything you've done for the Covington community. Thank you. Shay. On paper has 9 years as an employee of LASD, but what was the number you used? 24 years
21 years.
as a parent, a volunteer, a PTA, all of the things, but.
Started as a baby.
Just as a baby, Elena. But you have been a literacy aide, you've been the office clerk, and then, of course, you're retiring now and a great school secretary. Thank you so much for your many years of service for LASD, for Covington, for CSEA. I know you play an important role in that organization too, and you will be sorely missed over at Covington. Thank you. But not least, we have Sheena. Has been teaching in LASD for 19 years. And those of us who were at the Hoffman Award dinner kind of got the history of Sheena and our computer science program. But Sheena, you've played many roles, from the art teacher, you've done traveling math teacher, and of course, you have been absolutely instrumental in developing and growing and continuing our computer science program. So thank you so much. I know Sheena too will be keeping her fingers in the computer science pot and helping us stay on top of everything. But Sheena, we appreciate you so much. You have done tremendous work for every kid in Los Altos School District. So thank you.
Steve said, I would not have done it anywhere, but it's because it was Los Angeles School District. This has been an innovative school district that took a chance on so much and gave me an opportunity. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Picture. Can we bring all the retirees up?
Oh, Emily in the middle. I know.
Yes.
But.
Three-quarter ball.
Thank you, thank you. And just like we tell the students, you're welcome to stay.
Thank you. No, that's all right. I was trying to add up how many decades are we losing this year?
It's like. And a CAC actually.
All right.
Straight up. I get to listen virtually today. I'm very excited, yeah.
D6, superintendent
All
update.
right, superintendent update. We're down to a day and a half left, tomorrow and half a day Wednesday. So lots of activities. We have preschool graduation tomorrow. All of our sixth graders are promoting on Wednesday, and then we look forward to seeing you all, and we'll be attending Egan and Block graduations in that order. So we'll see you at Egan by 10:45, please, which would be great. And it's going to be HOT hot. So wear your sunscreen, please. At our next meeting, today's meeting is a lot of our required public hearings and what have you. And your next meeting on the 10th is a lot of the action to approve those items. But an important item that we're going to be bringing, or two items, is our facility master plan draft. And a little bit of information about construction on the 10th site. So those things. So I had a question. I know Brian and you and I talked a little bit about this. So stop me if I'm getting into your business, but we were going back and forth with facility master planning. Do we want it to be a study session before our regular meeting, or do we want to just book like 45 minutes to an hour as item one within our meeting? We'd like it to be a little bit more interactive than just being spoken to. And Steve, I don't know if you have an opinion. You've been the board rep.
Certainly think that would be helpful to have a conversation versus it being a normal presentation
Yeah.
approach. So a study session would make sense. Give a chance for folks to question. It's kind of what we discussed in the facilities brief. That would make them sense. But, yeah, I'll just want a presentation.
Is there? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I usually disagree with Steve this time.
I'm for study session for sure.
Okay, are people available a little early on?
10?
On the 10th, if we'd have to go, I don't know at the moment that we have a lot else in closed session, so.
We do like a 5:30 to 6:30.
So I can't get it, but yes, because Jack has a board meeting. I can.
On Monday.
I'm not in.
You can-
So you won't be here at all?
I will be here 4:30 to 6. So then
Okay,
about next steps in
Nice.
merger.
gotcha.
Okay.
I can block off the whole thing.
Yeah, we look great.
Me too.
Okay,
I think we need Steve for this conversation.
I am also pretty much the day.
So we could.
We want to do it earlier,
in the day.
do it earlier during the
Okay,
day.
maybe after our meeting's over, but before everybody leaves, we can try to solidify a time and then work with CA to see if they're available. Problem solved, look at that.
Great.
And then the last item on my update today is, I really wanted to thank Chris Hazelton. I know you probably are going to come up and give your talk, but Chris is finishing out his LATA presidential duties. He has another day and a half left, or I don't know really when it becomes official.
June 30th.
June 30th. But I want to thank you, Chris. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you and working very closely with you on a lot of interesting in important things for your members and for our staff members. So thank you. We really appreciate it. Welcome to Alex, but you'll get to meet Alex.
You're doing my job for me.
I know.
He made us.
Sorry, Miss.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Would any board members like to provide comments on the consent calendar? Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So move.
Second.
Motion to approve the consent calendar as presented made by Vladimir, seconded by Shally. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Which brings us to employee requests to address the board. Mr. Abelson.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, she like totally stole everything I was gonna say. No, it's fine. I am here to kind of end my term officially. And one of the things I do is I introduce you to the next president, which some of you probably already know. Our next LAT president is Miss Alex Schroeder. She is a computer science teacher in the district, but she served as a STEM teacher and IST and in many, many roles, which I think will help her to understand all the kind of complexities about how all of this stuff works. And she's a great people person and has a great sense of humor, and I think she will be amazing in the role. For my last speech to you, I was thinking about why I got into the work in the first place, which obviously was just to help people. We were coming out of COVID and it felt a little bit, not under attack, but in a place of stress. And when I initially came into the role, I thought, well, I feel like this will be a chance for me to make a change, help people. And what I learned as I did the role is it's a lot more complicated than that. And sometimes there's a bit of give and take on both sides. And in some ways, it was fortunate for me that Sandra was also kind of coming into her role at the same time, because we almost got to define something different. And what I felt like we found, and one of the things that I really loved working with her, was that it wasn't one person or one group over another. It didn't mean that teachers and needs of teachers were above all else. It didn't mean that the needs of students were above all else. What it ended up coming to was that there was kind of a synergy. And when teachers are happy and when they're treated well, and when they feel supported and they feel empowered in their workplace, that directly benefits kids. And I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. And one of the quotes that I've read, and I've said this to Sandra in our meetings probably a couple times, was for any new practice to be successful, it has to be sustainable. You can't have a best practice unless it can be delivered over and over and over again. And in order for that to happen, the needs of teachers do have to be considered, whether or not it's the best for kids or not. And I think that that has been something that has come into our conversations, especially the past year. And it makes me really hopeful for where I'm leaving the union, because I think that we're almost there. And Alex, you're going to do great. All of that. And just my last thing, I'd like to say thank you for all of you for supporting teachers, for educating our community about kind of where our teachers stand, whether that's through the language that we used with Measure A, or as we're talking about the bond measure and how that impacts our general fund and, you know, eventually teacher compensation and other things like that. The fact that we have a board that's even willing to consider that is very different from some of my colleagues in other districts. And I think it also can show to teachers that they are truly valued in Los Altos, as we heard from our retirees earlier. So thank you very much for working with me. And I look forward to continuing on in the district in a different way. So thank you so much.
Chris, DSEA, Atlanta, want to say anything? No, okay. To provide public comment on an agenda item tonight, speaker cards are to be submitted to the superintendent. Speaker cards will not be accepted once public comment on an item begins. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Item G, community comments. This time is reserved for the public to address the board on items not on the agenda. Do we have any cards? Seeing no cards, I will move on to H1. Action discussion items. H1, Measure N, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, Annual Report.
We have Steve Houchins is here tonight. He's the chair of the Citizens Oversight Committee for Measure N. He's going to give, every year, we're required to give the annual update to the board. And so tonight, Steve is here to do that. So thank you for being here tonight, Steve.
Oh, thank you, Eric. Nice to be with you this evening. It's a pleasure. I'm Steve Houchins. I'm here representing the Measure In Citizens Oversight Committee. It's a small but dedicated group that gets together once a quarter to just look over the expenses for the quarter, just to see if everything's in order as we expect. And it has been each and every time. The committee met on March the 13th with the auditor, Mr. Paul Van from Chauvin and Associates, to review the audited results. And that was for the year of 2023, June 30th, 2023. The auditor reported that the district has properly accounted for the expenditures held in the Measure In fund, and that such expenditures were made for authorized bond project. The auditor reported that there were no findings and no recommendations. Based on that, we, the Measure In Citizens Oversight Committee, recommend that you accept and that you approve this report. Thank you very much. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions by fellow board members? Any requests for public comment?
And we're still recruiting members, right? Two
Yeah.
members.
We see two more members. Please help us out. Although we did have our newest member, Emily Harris, who just joined us, who gave us a great recommendation also for how to go about the process of finding somebody from the Taxpayers Association and also from the local business association. Those are the two open spots that we have at the moment. And we have two Steves on the committee as well.
Is there any further public comment, or would someone like to make a motion to approve the annual report?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve the Measure N Citizens Bond Oversight Committee Annual Report made by Vladimir, seconded by Shally. Absent any further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Moving on to H2, Citizens Advisory Committee for Finance Annual Report.
For tonight, we have John Michelson, and Stella, Cam, Robin Abrams, and Curtis Cole are here tonight for the Citizens Advisory Committee for Finance to present their annual report.
Thank you. Good seeing all of you. I can figure this out. There's our agenda. A couple of taglines for the items that will give you a general preview. I'm gonna ask my co-committee person, Curtis Cole, to talk about the 6-year financial forecast. As you recall from our charter, that's one of the things that we are supposed to do every now and then. Here we go. What do these slides look like? In a while, it's been a few days. Let's see, we'll go forward with our and required 6-year forecast, which of course starts out with the current year. But first, all of the context pulled together by Fred and taking a look at the home sales that we've had and in the both in the county and in the district. And the words here. While the actual Santa Clara County and Los Altos reflects the same thing, there's been a decline in the number of home sales that have been occurring on in the past few years, no doubt due to high interest rates, the affordability of mortgages and so on like that. And nevertheless, the average sale price, which directly relates to the property tax that we're going to collect, look to be stable in the district here. There's risk there. This happens all the time when there's a setback in a recession, everything. And ultimately, there's a delay in how it impacts the revenues that come into the district, but it doesn't look, it's not to look like it's recovering greatly right now, but it doesn't look terrible as well. So it's in a cautious state at this point. So as I say, home sales are down, but prices are stable. And it's the volume, of course, and in particular, the really old homes, the ones that have been 1990s and 2000s tax bases, when they turn over, that affects our property taxes. So we do expect therefore that in the short term, the growth of the revenue that comes into the district is going to be below our long-term average of 5%, something around 3% or something of that nature for. Historically, eventually things return to average after something between 1 and 4 years. I don't know exactly what that can do. And so in our guidance, in our forecast going forward, we put together two scenarios. Eric's base case here, where the current one we know is about 5%. And then in the 4 years in between the other 5, we show a 4 and staying down at 3%. And in our recovery case, those last 2 years, we expect to go back to the average, or rather we consider what happens there. And it has a big impact on the district's finances. There are still, of course, a great deal of unknowns. Where will inflation go? How much competitive pressure we'll have to make sure that we be able to retain these great teachers. And those are quite moving words I heard earlier today. We continue to have some capital expense encroachments due to a couple of things there. We may get some caps or new mandatory programs that come in here. Sorry about the new. We don't know what happened with the 10th impact, site impact, and
Those are
enrollment.
special.
For the cat community, yes.
Yeah.
And of course, enrollment in whatever direction it goes has an impact on the district, both in facilities, of course, and the number of teachers and staff compensation there as well. We have previously presented, I think, in our mid-year report, sensitivity analysis. A number of things have a big impact. Again, on the revenue side, a 1% change affects us out at $2 million. And 3 years of that 1% gets you ultimately to $4 million. Salary adjustments, looking at over a 3-year sum, could be $3 or $6 million for a single 2%. Or a 2% each of 3 years. Big impact, and notice those numbers are larger than the property tax. Facilities maintenance and upgrades, that's still hitting us around $3 million a year. We don't know what it is. The facilities get older, we need to do more work for them. And PERS and STIRS still face pressure. And another 1% of our employee share hitting the districts is $1 million. And enrollment swings, up to $1 million for 100 students. We're predicting healthcare costs continue to go up 5%. It's still, don't understand how our healthcare system works. Trust me, it's crazy. But that's a big impact. So we've got in the charts you've looked at before, there's 4 scenarios. The base scenario here, I say, again, the base revenue with a modest or conservative property tax growth. And then a normal step in column, but no increased compensation. It's flat, 0% over those 5-year changes. And we expect benefit inflation about 5% per year. We have another one where we only change the revenue, and you see an increase in the property taxes out in, I think it's 3 years there, not 2, but 3 years. And then in a third case, the base case plus increased salary compensation of 3% and 2% out there to handle the inflation we have. And then what happens when you combine 2 and 3 together, both have recovery and salary. And then here's basically what happens to our budget, whether we're in surplus or deficit. We're starting out right now with a notable deficit right now. And ultimately, for this team to be sustainable, we need to get to that 0 line in here, the green and the blue line. That either means continue along with the base case that we anticipate that Eric's put together, where we'll eventually get to a balanced budgets. Or, and a great improvement on that, of course, is to get the property tax to come up and you see the green lines rise there significantly. Without those, the salaries don't really quite look affordable in the red line if you just have the salary without the property tax increase. And the only way to get it back up around as close to 0 is with the revenue and the salary. We do understand the district's been working really hard to achieve balanced budgets, and it shows in here in the blue line. We appreciate the work that they've done for that as well. And the reserves are, of course, the integration, the accumulation of all of that, and they stay stable in the positive cases of blue and green here in our base case or in the recovery case of property taxes. But we struggle to manage to put in the 3% and 2% salary and competitive compensation packages that are there as well. So in the out years, we can only afford compensation increase if there's property tax growth. Or some other change in the district's budget, and like you kind of, maybe you've done all that. So there are some challenges there. Any questions on that part? Back to the esteemed John.
I have one quick question. The base is at 6% this year. I was noticing in
I
the.
think it was in the contract
Yeah.
for it's adjusted
For
for this
this
year.
year, I wasn't sure if it was this year or
Yes.
next year.
Yeah, this year.
I thought it was this year, but it was not
Only the facts on the table.
explicit.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And again, we realize that the district staff has been very aggressive and very successful in getting the budget balanced. That's helpful. These numbers were generated before we had the latest budget information. It'll look slightly better, but the message, the basic message is the same. Without property tax growth, it's going to be very difficult to do some of the other things that the district wants to do. It's just the reality, for better or worse. Capital needs. We've been talking about this for some time. I went back and looked. In 2015, our group did a sort of wild exercise. We said, over the next 20 years, what issues do we think the district might have to deal with? I'm sorry, we did not predict the pandemic. We weren't very good. We missed it. We also missed the decline in enrollment. Two are related. But one of the things we did highlight was 10 years ago, we said, there are facilities problems, and the facilities problems need to be addressed. So before Measure N, the 10 site, before all of that. Remember, most of our facilities were built in the 50s and 60s. That's 50s and 60s last century, not this century. Measure H, which was at the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s, did a great deal in terms of this campus. But on most of the other campuses, what was done there was cosmetic. Okay? So we are dealing with facilities where some pieces, some classrooms are not just old, but really old. So the need is there. And I'm glad that, you're going to be getting a new study. But I do want to talk about what happened the last time this exercise was undertaken. If you go back and look at 2013, 2014, there was a lot of work done, plan created, and I'm sorry to say not much happened. The reason not much happened was because the finance piece was not there. And so a lot of things were identified as needs. I haven't seen the new study, but I'm willing to bet there's going to be a lot of things that were in the 2013, 2014 that are in this study as well. If you just look at basic inflation, we talked about the cost of construction, which is probably above inflation. Some of the things that were called out that needed to be done in 2013, 2014 are going to cost twice or more to do moving forward, as they would have done if there had been financing and the plan for getting some things done 10 years ago. So delay is really not an option. Because the consequence of delay is it'll just cost more in the future. And in the meantime, our facilities are old. They're not up to date. There are many instances a negative in terms of education we provide. And we can talk about specifics, but that's just the unfortunate reality. And we would suggest when you think about financing, I know there's discussion of bond issue, but one bond is not going to be sufficient. Again, I haven't seen the numbers, but if you look at the numbers in 2013, 2014, Bond wasn't gonna do it then, and the costs have increased in the 10 years since. So think, if you would, a little bit longer term, not just one bond, but it's gonna take several bonds. Substantial period of time. And the one concrete suggestion we could leave you with, make, is you do an annual budget. It's an important exercise. It's an important way to look at operations and get a handle on those. Think about doing a capital budget. Think about doing a capital budget for a 5-year period. So that not only do you identify the needs when the financing comes along, and obviously, you know, it's gonna take some work to get a bond passed, but it's necessary and it's doable. But don't sit on it, please, spend it, and have a plan to spend. It will redound to the benefit of the district and the education services. But, so that's our message on capital. We'll repeat that message every year, maybe every 6 months, I promise you. Any questions on that one? I'm looking forward to see the facilities plan. I think it'll be quite interesting. The other items on our agenda are a little less weighty. If you haven't, we've previewed this. If you haven't gone and looked at it, do so. This was motivated by the notion that, you know, the last time we went around the election, the property, the parcel tax, there seemed to be a lot of misinformation and sort of a lack of understanding in the community generally about how the district finances its operations. So some of the folks on the CACF have done a terrific job putting together slides that you will see at that link, and it's a good educational exercise that we will be promoting to various groups starting in the fall. Have any of you looked at it? Good, okay. Last but not least, you've seen this before. We did a little housekeeping this year. And the one thing that we would ask, if any of you have ideas for folks who would be interested in be in a position to make contributions to our group. It would be terrific to have greater representation from Mountain View, possibly from the hills. And also, we have had in the past, and we'd like to have someone from the Bullis Charter School community be part of our group. Some of the parcel tax money goes to Bullis. And I think to get a good sense of the community, we would be well served to have someone from that group from that community on our group. So if you have any thoughts, if you have any suggestions as to candidates, please let us know. In summary, budget looking good. There's challenges in the years ahead, and I know the district is working to make sure budgets stay balanced. We recognize the need for competitive salaries, but that's going to take property tax to make room. The facilities master plan you're looking at, but that's only half picture. We need to fund it. As we look forward, and this is not, you know, a 20-year forecast, the immediate, the area where we see the greatest uncertainty at the moment is enrollment. We've seen some changes, maybe some possible reversal with TK, but who knows? So that's an area of concern. And then things that we're looking at for next year, again, enrollment, 10 site impact. We'd love to predict that for you. Can't until you figure out how you're going to use the 10 site. It's going to have major impact one way or another in terms of what will happen financial standpoint. And then certainly if there are more things, other things that you would find helpful for our group to look at next year, we're happy to entertain those thoughts and address those. Questions? Okay. We're sitting here in stunned silence. Yeah, I want to pull in two statements I heard earlier today, because quite often in this budget, we're just talking about annual budgets. So, I mean, you gotta get through the year, you're 2 days away, that's great, celebrate, you all deserve. But you know, I met Randy Kenyon, and I think it was treasurer for the 98 bond campaign a long time ago. Teacher said, STEM teacher said, thank you for taking a chance and creating something looking forward. It's been decades now in the STEM and the computer science program. Thank you for being the kind of board. I know you're only the current head of the animals, but it's been a long change of people for a board that can do that. And I also want to echo something said, a best practices needs to be a sustainable practice. So while we're always harping on capital, it might be that our capital program needs to be at every generation and every so often kind of thing, thinking, what are we going to do every 20 years or every 15 years to renew this, to move it forward? So I think it fits in with the culture that you've had and the success that we've had at the system. So thank you.
Okay. Eric, I think you've got
Yeah, I'd like to
One
have
of our members to recognize.
Yeah, I'd like to recognize Robin Abrams. Robin was one of the first smiling faces in a very large, huge interview panel when I was first hired. And then she texted me after I was hired and said, let's go meet for coffee and talk. And it was great. I learned more about the Los Altos community and who to talk to. And it really speaks volumes. She's been so supportive at CACF. She loved the district. She loves Los Altos. It's a pleasure of mine to be able to work with her and call her a friend. 14 years of service on CACF. She's been really involved in the community, as you know, and we're going to be going to miss her tremendously. And they've talked about recruiting, and it's going to be hard to replace Robin. So this is appreciation to Robin Heyman for outstanding performance and lasting contribution to the Citizens Advisory Committee for Finance. So thank you.
So I have to make just a couple comments, right? First of all, so I over the week, Eric contacted me yesterday. And so then I wanted to reflect on the partnership that CACF and the board has built, right? So all of you know, I think in threes, right? So first of all, no longer do we have that pattern in April of giving pink slips to the teachers. That was one of my personal objectives. I know Curtis was right there with me, and the disruption that caused, right? So 2 years into that term, so we haven't had to do that, right? You know, and hats off to the trustees, right, doing that. The other hats off is that you approved a reserve policy, right? That has helped the district immeasurably in terms of the stability of your financial disciplines, as well as your bond ratings, right? And how it gives guardrails, if you will, to Eric and how he thinks about that. And then lastly, right, if you look among yourselves, there's only one of you that hasn't been on CACF. So it's become kind of a training ground in some ways, right? And so you've heard of the two things, and of course, I have to talk about the things we haven't done so well, and I mean CACF. So it has been really, really difficult to have a sustainable seat, and that seat filled in terms of Mountain View representative. And I'll say the last 4 years, BCS. Now we interview people. And we, as you can see, we have an attendance requirement. They don't have to be able to read a spreadsheet, right? But we want them to be dedicated to the district. We want them to be financially somewhat literate, and we want them to be collaborative, right? And we know sometimes some will come for 3 months, three meetings, and then they'll disappear. So that we've not mastered that yet. And then the last thing, and this, I'm not asking for a reaction here, but together somehow, I hope it doesn't take 9 years in terms of a maintenance and a capital budget, right? Because that's not a good track record for CACF, and it's not a good track record for you. And if something dramatic happens, it will encroach on your operating expense, and it will cause your bond rating to go down and ultimately cost us as a district more money. So anyway, it's been a delight, a pleasure. As Eric knows, this is my favorite volunteer group, my absolute favorite. Why? Because there's never any drama. Right, it's just the numbers, right? So anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure to serve. Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments? Second, all the praise. Thank you to all of you for your work, and especially Robin for all of your work over the years. I guess we'll move on to H3, the strategic plan 2024 LCAP.
Thank you.
Good evening. I have the great honor of bringing an update to you on our draft strategic plan, which we've aligned to our draft LCAP. And as you know, the strategic plan is the district's North Star. And it's based on a promise that we've made to our kids. We've set that context throughout the year. And as we talk about the wheel and really wanting to connect with who each and every child is and putting them at the center of their learning experience, we care that we're supporting them not just academically, but also social, emotionally, and with their cognitive development, because we want them to develop as full people. And so we do that through developing positive developmental relationships, having safe and caring environments, ensuring rich learning. We care about development of skills, habits, mindsets, and then having tiers of support. It's all based on the science of learning. We didn't make it up. We borrowed it, we adapted it, just like good educators and researchers do. And it's really based on some work that had been done previously in the district in developing a portrait of a learner. And those were the skills and competencies that we wanted, in addition to our kids being academically successful. We want them to be good in terms of character, be creative, critical thinking skills, good citizens, collaborators, and good communicators. And so thinking about our kids and their development, we also care that they're filled with hope and a sense of belonging, that they're engaged in their learning experience. And just as been talked about this evening, that they're learning innovative things here in our district, 21st century skills, so that they can adapt with ever-changing world and be ready for high school and beyond. So to do this work and bringing this to you this evening in draft form, we've engaged with our partners in what we call a World Cafe format. And we highlighted 4 different areas. So area 1 was about our kids and driving students. Area 2 was about our educators being empowered. Area 3 was engaged families, and 4 was about our infrastructure, which we just heard a little bit about tonight with finances. And so I got the great privilege to be in input sessions with more than 250 individuals, starting with 4th grade on up. We did do some student work this year, student input sessions, but also with you, the board here this evening, and you on certain committees that we run. Our cabinet team has worked extensively on this, as well as our leadership team. And then our different community groups, whether it's our PTA leaders, our aspiring leaders, our DLAC, our budget review committee, curriculum council, or wellness committee. And we ran them through an exercise to kind of dig into those 4 areas that you see as our strategic priority areas and ask them some input about, well, what makes a thriving student? How do we know if our students are thriving? We dug into that. What does it mean to be an empowered educator? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does the district do to make that happen? What's that experience? And then similarly with families, what does an engaged family do? How do they feel about participating, volunteering, or engaging with their school sites? And then finally, if we say we want LASD to have strong infrastructure, what does that mean in terms of our facilities and finances? And so with that, we have brought you a draft of our strategic planning area. So you should have a copy at your seat. It looks like this for each of the 4 areas. And this has been vetted in each of those community groups. We also did a survey of our parents and our staff, but we feel like this really captures it. And so the work tonight that you're reviewing with our LCAP aligns directly with each of the 4 areas. So you'll see each of the 4 areas of goal in that LCAP document, as well as actions that connect with it. Now, our LCAP, as we know, has been somewhat of a compliance document, so we plan to continue to flesh out our strategic plan more, but we wanted to bring you here a draft tonight that meets those LCAP requirements and is totally aligned. And so with that, I'd like to just thank some of the folks that helped make all of this happen. I had 4 aspiring leaders who were helping with student input sessions. It was Josh Molesmith, Dana Harditzer, Grace Troy, and Felina Caberlin. And then I also had 4 principals who helped lead some of the strategic planning sessions, and that was Kate from Gardner, Raquel from Allman, Kevin from Covington, and Denise from Springer. And I want to thank Eric on the business side for that LCAP, because we went back and forth with county quite a bit trying to hammer in those numbers. So really appreciate his support. And that concludes my very brief update on our strategic plan and LCAP, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments that you have. And if you'd like additional input before we bring it back on the 10th, we'd be happy to meet with you as well.
Do you want comments on the actual document now, or some later stage here? Or-
It's really your preference. If it's a little thing you want to do it one-on-one, I'd be happy to, or if you'd like to share it.
We met briefly and I think we're both of us at least in general on the same page. Yeah, we're on the same page. One of the things that struck me was, and I mentioned this here, is let me see if I can find it now. It's I know what it is, but I don't want to find it. It's metric 1.5. Anyway, I'll just say it what it was. It was the chronic absenteeism. And I don't know whether I've been neglectful in the past, and this is just a continuation of that, or whether this is something new. If it is something that's been in the past and I haven't noticed it, I apologize for it. But I was horrified at the numbers. It's really, we have a lot of work to do. And I'm glad that you and Secretary recognize that.
And it's a complex,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
when you drill down to the student level, it's a variety. We have many of our families choosing to take kids out on long vacations, and they're leaving for significant amounts of time, which is impacting. That's kind of one large group of that is resulting in chronic absenteeism. And then we have folks who are not showing up and have had some health crises. And our school teams are working with those families to make sure that students are getting to school every day. So it's a lot of
I understand.
nuanced work that needs to happen.
Am I right? But the chronic absenteeism definition is missing school for any reason.
Correct,
So
any reason.
If a
even
kid
if
gets the
you're
flu
called-
3 times, well, or even if they're
Yes.
sick, if you get the flu 3 times,
Yes.
then you might be chronically absent, even though there's nothing really that anybody could have done about
That
it.
is true. Yes,
And it's 18 days.
10%, yeah.
18, because 180 days is.
I realize that it's beyond us. It's a problem that's beyond us. I was disappointed in our legislators because as part of the Legislative Action Committee of the SCCSBA, we surveyed trustees throughout Santa Clara County. We came up with a list of a number of different areas that we wanted to focus, that people wanted to focus on. We took the top 4, and as far as I can tell, none of those have resulted in legislation. And so I'm not very hopeful that we're going to get help from the legislators to tackle something that is as multidimensional as this is. But I guess parents need to understand that summer is for vacations. I don't know. We have to meet our kids where they are, whatever the reason is. So that was just, you mentioned that. That was just what jumped out at me. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Other comments? No? All right. Thank you very much. And we'll roll straight into H4, the public hearing. H425, okay.
Okay, with that, this is presented, all of the documents and corresponding documents for the LCAP as required. So it's the annual update for 23-24, the fresh 24-25 LCAP, as well as the federal addendum.
If anyone would like to provide public comment on this item, please submit a speaker card. I will declare the public hearing open. Are there any further board questions? Comments? No public comment. And the public hearing now closed. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, we will continue on to H5. Public hearing for the 24-25 LCFF budget review.
Parents.
Okay.
So attached is our updated budget overview for parents. This is the document that you see each year annually. It's updated for 24-25 and corresponds with our most recent update for LCAP following the LCFF local control funding formula.
Anyone who would like to provide public comment on this item, please submit a speaker card. Public hearing is now open. Are there any questions from the board?
Did we incorporate, well, obviously, we haven't gotten the CACF.
ABCs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did we incorporate some of that in there, in our?
No, it's a required template that you can almost not adjust whatsoever. You have like 2 lines of text and that's it.
I think we are using the ABC Public Finance on our website.
Yes.
We're trying to use that in our education. All right.
Look at this undiscernible document. Look at this presentation. I mean, wonderful document. It was filled out to the best of the ability for bureaucracy. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments about this particular document? No public comment, I'm assuming the hearing is now closed. Unless there's any further comment, we will now go to H6, the public hearing around the proposed 24-25 district budget pursuant to a bunch of education codes. With ending balances in excess of the minimum recommended reserves. Mr. Wallach, actually, I'm supposed to do this first. If anyone would like to provide public comment on this item, please submit a speaker card. Public hearing is now open. Mr. Wallach.
Thank
Interesting to see this. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Tonight is our public hearing for the adopted budget for 24-25. We're really excited about the weighted budget, and as Curtis and CAC have been talking about, we really have listened and rolled up our sleeves and done a lot of hard work to get our budget balanced. And we're really excited looking forward. Still a lot more work to do, but we're looking at a better financial position than we were really at this time last year. But this time last year, there was in our multi-year projection, we had to show actually parcel tax was not going to be renewed, and that was a big change. We've done a lot of other work, which I'm going to highlight tonight. So we're really excited. First of all, before I get started, I want to acknowledge all the hard work of the business staff. They have worked tirelessly. We recently hired Elizabeth Bays. We stole her. Thank you, Carrie, from Saratoga School District. Stole her from her husband's district, and she has been outstanding. She literally hit the ground running, working on a lot of getting things organized and cleaned up on some account codes and how we label things. And it really worked very hard. There was a Sunday where we both came in and worked like 10 hours on a Sunday, and so she's super dedicated, and it's been great to have her. And also Rosemary Pottage, who is a retired chief business officer. She has come over and she has probably worked like 80 hours a week for us. And I said, we'll pay you as a consultant. Oh, no, I want to give back. As a retired, she wants to give back to other school districts, and it's like, I feel like we need to like adopt her or something. So, but Rosemary's been great. And she's been a great resource to us. We have a software that you approved earlier tonight called Analytics Software. It's our budgeting software, and it's many school districts use it. She is like a wizard, and so she really helped Elizabeth get really up to speed on it, and it's been very valuable. So I just want to acknowledge those two people, but then also the rest of the business staff. Sandra Bush is like the glue that keeps everything going in our business staff. Carolyn Garcia in accounts payable, the Lion payroll. She's the most important person in the district. She can make sure everybody gets paid on time. Farhat in purchasing, Carol Paris Brown at the front desk. And it's just a great team. We have a really great team. And everybody, and we're a small district, so a lot of people wear a lot of different hats, so I want to acknowledge them, they just work really hard. And also my LCAP partner over there, Carrie Bosco, so. So state law requires that we adopt the budget by June 30th, and just as you heard tonight, the LCAP and the budget both have to have a public hearing first, and then next week on June 10th will be hopefully to adopt the LCAP and the budget. All of our 24-25 meets the state account code structure, and we gave you a new handout this year because I know you love reading the SACS forms, but we gave you a one-page all funds summary. And so this is a one-page summary. This will be something we'll be adding to all the budget documents. We thought this would be a nice way to look at that. And then we're gonna do one of just the general fund when we go to our interims. But we want to kind of highlight that, the new document, and I think it kind of, if you look at this one page, it kind of, that's our whole budget on one piece of paper. At May revision, you know, I know there's been talk about the maneuver. I know later on the agenda, there's a thing opposing the governor's interesting maneuver and finagling. If we tried to do that as a public school agency, we'd get in a lot of trouble. So we can't do what Sacramento is trying to do. Most of the things do not really impact us. We're mostly locally funded through property tax, as you heard CACF talk about tonight. Property taxes is our #1 driver for our revenue. We're very fortunate the parcel tax was renewed, and a tremendous amount of revenue is local in nature. So that all the stuff that's going on in Sacramento doesn't impact us too much. There are a few things that do though. But you know, the governor, this is a very risky budget. In January, we knew this, in the legislative analyst office. Those are the people who I listen to because they do know the numbers. So we'll see how this goes, but for right now, they may revise. We'll see what happens between now and the end of the month when the governor has to sign the budget. So not a huge change, but it is a risky budget, and we'll see how it goes. So our general fund revenue assumptions, our local property tax growth, right now at adoption, we're looking at 4%. We rely on the county assessor's office to give us the AV growth. And we really don't know, we won't know until like August when they give us their actual revenue projections. So you're basically have to adopt your budget without all the information, but the assumption is last year we adopted the budget at 5.5. We're going to finish probably about 5.72%. That's pretty close. So right now we're going to adopt 4. And as Curtis and CAC have talked about, there's probably 85% of the properties in Los Altos are assessed below the market value. So when those homes do get sold, we'll see a lot more AV growth. And so right now, you know, we're very fortunate where we're at. The parcel tax is 10.4. I remember last year that was 9.4. So that's a huge increase. Guaranteed state aid. One thing that I want to point out was not in our multi-year budgets last year because we didn't know we were going to get the money. We finally did receive our Prop 28 revenue. It is in our adopted budget. We funded 2 computer science teachers with that extra revenue. That is ongoing. So that's ongoing revenue. I know Jessica mentioned at the last meeting, don't use one-time funds for things that eat. Well, these are people that eat. Alexander Schroeder was here earlier as one of the computer science teachers, and that's ongoing revenue, and it will be adjusted every year, depending on what our AD is. And special education is really the only thing that got a slight increase, and that's a COLA, but the amount of COLA is so small, it's almost like a delta, not a big change for us. But we get about $3 million a year, and it's called excess ERAF. And that's property taxes that are dedicated just to special ed, and that's the $3 million special education entitlement. Charter school impacts, and you heard a little bit about it tonight. We've been kind of talking about this. It still has a tremendous impact on our facilities. We're assuming that about 65 to 70 students are going to be coming from outside the district. But the parcel tax, based on the May revised numbers, so from last year to this year, it's only an increase of about 113,000. When COLA was 8.2%, large increase, almost $600,000 to $700,000 increase of our property tax revenue going back out. BCS is projected to receive 625,000 of the parcel tax of the 3.6, that's Measure A only, and that's the proportionate share. The portable renters for BCS is about 865,000 per year, every single year. So those portables are costing us ongoing funds. One of the things BCS does pay a little bit for us is what's called pro rata. It's a fair share of the use of the facilities, but it's a very small little thimbleful of their fair share of the actual impact. It's impacting our middle school program. It's impacting our ability for PEs and programs at our middle schools. So there's a tremendous impact on just having that, them sharing that campus. And then shared facilities, I mentioned, they impact the middle school program and also traffic and congestion around our middle schools because we have all these extra kids that are not supposed to have that many students on a middle school campus. We really do have 10 schools on 9 sites. General fund, the parcel tax is 13%. Local property taxes are there, and state and federal is a very small percentage of our total revenue. Those property taxes, that is almost all property taxes. So you can see we're very much dependent on the local taxpayers, and we really appreciate that. 3-year summary, as you can see from 21-22, there's an 8.4% increase. Last year slowed down, still growing, but not at that same historic pace. And then next year at adoption, we're going to project a 4% property tax growth. So it'll be 66.5 million in total gross property tax before we transfer some funds to BCS. Included in our adoption is step and column, 1% for all 3 groups, 2 additional TK classes. As you've heard, TK is growing. That's 2 FTE certificated teachers per TK, and then 2 kinder aides, TK aides, and they're 0.75, so 6 hours a day. Increased health and welfare benefits cost us an extra $437,000. And then the statutory benefits, this is unemployment, workers' comp, STRS and PERS. That's how much for each dollar payroll we pay for those statutory benefits. And it's a tremendous amount. Health and welfare and statutory benefits is a large part of our budget. Federal revenue, this is the cafeteria fund. We try to highlight this, and the special ed are 2 biggest funds outside of the general fund. Special ed is the cafeteria fund. You can see a slight decline in the federal revenue. We did some supply chain grants that were in last year's budget and this year's. So now that those supply chain grants are not going to be, we're not going to be incorporating the revenue in the upcoming year. So that's a decrease of revenue. State got a very small increase in COLA for the reimbursement rate for free and reduced lunches. So we'll see that. So we're going to be monitoring this budget. But at the end of the year, our general fund contribution is still $974,000 for this year's cafeteria fund. For next year, the transfer to the cafeteria fund is going to be $864,000. And we have a new food services vendor, which we approved a couple meetings ago. We'll be monitoring them to see how they perform. So a lot of things going on. We are feeding students. We're working on recycling and composting, doing all the right things. But it is a challenge. You know, we're involved in teaching students, and feeding them is part of something that we talk about, those unfunded mandates. And that's something that we're going to be watching all the time. Special education contribution, as you see over the years, it has every year it has been going up and up. And so we have to be mindful of this expense. It's really I don't want to say unsustainable, but we have to be watching our expenses. And it's a very important program. We care about all of our students, but we also have to try to do as best we can with the most efficient manner. Our general fund contribution, you can see, is increasing almost $200,000. The total expenses are going up. We're lucky. We have a little bit of a transportation grant that we applied for. And so that transportation grant is going up every year. And so that helps defray the transportation cost. The transportation cost alone is almost $500,000 per year to transport our kids. So it's a very important program, but we want to really monitor it as best as we can. Multi-year projections. Not only do we have to adopt for the upcoming budget year, but then we're also required to budget for the next 2 subsequent years. So multi-year projections, we're budgeting 4% growth for next year and then 3% flat out. Our parcel tax, you can see with the COLA, it's going to go from 10.4 to 10.5 to 11.5. Lottery unrestricted is 604,000, and then due to the charter school, which will be adjusted depending on what the COLA is. One thing I want to point out is that our lottery unrestricted we use for our retiree benefits, and so as our enrollment is slightly declining, our lottery portion also goes down. It's based on ADA. So what's going to end up happening as our retiree benefits are almost $1 million for this upcoming year for retiree benefits. Well, as the lottery revenue goes down, the district has to backfill those retiree benefits from the general fund. So just something to be mindful of in the future. If the lottery revenue goes down, that's a concern. Step and column for multi-year expenditures. staffing changes, and this is kind of the work that we've been talking about. In 23-24, we reduced 24 positions, and then this upcoming budget year, 8.35, and we continue efforts to right size our staffing. We still have more work to do. The certificated staff have really rolled up their sleeves. We've been very tight on staffing, making sure we're not overstaffed, hiring only when we have vacancies, and it's really paid off a lot. So we're gonna be, but there's still more work to do in the upcoming year. And staffing is a moving target. This year, we just hired probably 3 people today, right? But most of them, we try to make sure they're actually been budgeted for, and then we can account for those changes as they flow. But we want to make sure we give the right amount of staff for the amount of students we have. Health and welfare, all groups increases 7.5% per year. We won't know what CalPERS rates are for health and welfare until July, middle of July. So once those rates come in, we'll update all of our salary schedules and our benefit tables. And then at first interim, we'll show you what the changes could be. Because right now our year is from, benefits are interesting. Benefits go from January to December, but our budget goes from June to July. So we have to make some assumptions between now and January to see what those rates would be. LCFF revenue, you can see, I want to highlight the bottom one. The other local is a lot of donations, interest and fees. One of the great things about, it's not great, but we earned a lot of revenue in the last 2 years because of high interest rates. So our general fund, we put our money in the county pool and it earns interest like all these other funds. So we've actually seen a significant increase in interest revenue, but it impacts other things as well. So that is where some of that other local is right there. Salary and benefits is a huge percentage of our budget. You can see we're a total 80.4, 82.2, and 84.4 in the out years for expenditures. That other financing uses, that's actually the transfer out to the cafeteria fund. That's what the other financing is. Multi-year projections. Now it's second interim. This shouldn't be too much of a surprise because at second interim, we were at 22% in the multi-year and we're projecting a slight, almost a balanced budget at second interim. So from second interim to adoption, a nice significant increase. And a lot of that is a result of the staffing that we've been talking about, staffing savings. So at the end of the year, and then also Fund 17 is part of our reserve requirement. And this is the interesting I was talking about. There's almost $3.6 million in there 2 years ago. It's grown to 3.8 because of interest earning on that. So you can see as our special reserve is actually been growing as well. And I just want to highlight in the next 3 years, these numbers look great, but this is just what the amount of revenue beginning fund balance is. It's not a savings account. It's not a spending account. It's what we're projecting to have at the end of each year's fund balance. Now, some of the contributing factors to the increased reserves, and I highlighted the ones that are one time. Measure A. Thank you, all Southwest voters. Measure A has passed ongoing revenue with a COLA every year, approximately $900,000. CalShape grant. We wrote a grant for CalShape for the Energy Commission at $1 million. The $1 million is going to help defray the cost of the maintenance department. And then if we're not overcommitting general fund dollars to maintenance, it's significant savings, almost $1 million. It's a CalShape grant for $1 million. One-time block grants. At this time last year, we weren't sure if the governor was going to pull back the block grants. We actually got them back. So that's an extra $1 million in block grants. Prop 28, which I mentioned earlier, $390,000. That's ongoing. The transportation grant, ongoing. The use of restricted funds. We still have, by the time we close the books this year, we'll probably have almost $1 million of restricted funds. And most of them are educator effectiveness. There's a lot of title funds. We want to use those funds first. So when we do all the great work that teaching, learning, instruction staff are doing on professional development, we're using the restricted funds first. Title II, educator effectiveness. And now when people go to conferences and do trainings, we use those restricted funds first. It's a huge savings to our general fund. Right size staffing, which I mentioned, we did a quick kind of back of the envelope we did about 33 FTEs over the last 2 years. That's about a $4.4 million savings. And then we also did a thing called position control. We only budget for actual openings. Sometimes when we'd have all these people budgeted and then we would ask, we couldn't hire somebody, couldn't find anybody, but we're holding the position. in the budget. And once we said, hey, are we gonna hire this person? And we worked very closely with HR. And they said, no, we're not gonna hire somebody, we're okay. Then we will close that position and that's a savings to the district. So huge savings by doing position control. I know Sandra's her favorite new term that she learned this year. And we also did a model this year called zero-based budgeting model. The city of Los Altos actually does this. Where, as we were going through our budget this year, we found many items that we would budget for every year, but no expenses were actually, we never used that money. And we started asking program managers and sites, well, hey, are you actually using this? Oh, no, we don't need that. So we started closing out. I had a red pen. And I went down with the red pen and I knocked off about 300,000 just for this upcoming year. And then our COLA, by not having a large COLA, there's a lot less transfer to BCS, and that's another significant savings. When you total all these up, over the last 2 years, we really tightened our belts. We do, one of the biggest things, that, you know, I'm a former teacher, so I really want to pay our teachers and all of our staff as much as we can. And so we're really working hard to do that. And it's really a commitment by the entire team, the entire district and the board. Despite all of this and giving the raises, we're still very low compared to our comparative districts. We need to do better. And so next year, when we go into negotiations, we're in a much better financial position, but there's still some things we have to be concerned about. So as good news as our budget is that we're balancing the upcoming year, right? There are still concerns. One of them is obviously, and you heard Curtis say it's slow property tax growth. We have to be mindful of that. The property tax growth, unless we get a lot of turnover, it's going to stay somewhat flat. The PERS rates are escalating. That is a huge concern for us. Our classified staff is such a large percentage of our salary structure, and classified staff paying a PERS. So that's something we have to be mindful of. Future TK and K staffing impact by adding those two classes. That we were able to absorb some of that with our own staff and move them around, but we did have to hire the 2 TK aides. We also have to buy furniture. I learned more about TK furniture in the last 2 weeks. But Greg Drummond has been great in working with Farhad. He's been ordering furniture, chairs and desks and all the equipment and supplies the TK classes need, because we want them to have a great teacher, but then also great facilities and having the right types of desks and chairs and things for all their activities they do. Rising utility costs. I don't know if you've looked at your PG&E bills lately. I was almost gonna sit down when I saw mine, but I was surprised that utility bills, we're just like any other person. We pay utility bills. They are going up about 5% for all utilities. In PG&E, we're budgeting about a 10% increase. So we have to be mindful of that. Increased supplies and services, healthcare increases. And then the one I want to highlight the most, I know CACF has really has some strong opinions about that, but the aging facilities and portables are impacting our general fund. They are. This is the first year that we don't have enough funds available in our developer fee fund, our capital facilities developer fee fund 25 to pay for portable rentals. So now that money is coming from our general fund. So the facilities now are catching up to us. So it's very important that we get the facilities master plan going. And this summer, we're really excited to remove some portables because that's going to save our general fund. So just in the future, these facilities and aging portables, they're impacting our general fund. So that's where we need to be able to, as quickly as we can, make some of those changes. So there's a lot of good things in our budget, but there's a lot of concerns. And I am always very cautious. I want us to be cautious in the future as well. So this is the timeline for a public hearing today. We'll adopt the budget and the LCAP next week. And then those are all the standard timelines for everything else. And then the last item is that public hearing, the time for the board to receive input. And then we plan on adopting the budget scheduled for next Monday, June 10th.
Questions?
A question as it relates to slide 17.
Yep.
Contributing factors to increase reserves.
Yes.
Just as it relates to the right sizing of staffing, we, saying that 33 FTEs we no longer have. How did we get there? I know
So
the answer, but I just wanted-
the bulk of them are from retirement, attrition, as people are leaving. There were a couple layoffs.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but there were a couple layoffs. But most of them were from attrition, as people left the district, they moved, they retired. We carefully looked at that position, made, do we actually need to backfill it? And we said no. And then also as our enrollment has dropped, oh, and if you look at the history of our enrollment and our staffing, the district has been very mindful of that. Yeah, so we've been really mindful of staffing.
Thank you.
Any questions? Request for public comment? Okay. If there's any further discussion, hearing is now closed. And absent any further comments, we move on. Thank you very much. H7 mobile modular agreement for portable removal, as just alluded to.
Sure, perfect timing. So mobile modular, the district leases about about $1.8 million in portable rentals across the district. Most of it comes from our capital developer fees. Some of it is being paid for the general fund. And then some of it from our Waldorf fund. I call that the Waldorf fund. It's called the building fund. It's called Fund 210. This summer, we've been working with Denise and Kevin, the two principals from Springer and Covington, and we've identified 9 portables that we'd like to have removed this summer. Global Modular is the company that's actually leasing the portables. They will be, the plan is we have to do a lot of disconnecting. So a lot of the contracts that were on the consent agenda tonight were related to this item. This is a bigger contract, so we want to have this one be an action item only and kind of pull it off on its own. So Mobile Modular is a company, it's their portable, so we have to pay the removal cost. And then one of the portables that is at Springer, they actually have to, we own it, and so they're gonna be, they have to take one that's on the left side and they have to take the one that we own and they're gonna slide it over to where it is. So we're asking the board tonight to approve as part of our portable removal project. It's a contract with Mobile Modular to remove 9 portables from Springer and Covington schools tonight. And this is a Measure N funded project.
Any questions? Very good. Any requests for public comment? Absent any further discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve the agreement.
Second.
Motion to approve the mobile modular agreements made by Vladimir, seconded by Shelley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Now we come to H8, resolution 23/24-21, opposing the governor's budget
Let you talk about
shenanigans.
I'm a new.
So this, most of you probably have seen CSBA was circulating this resolution, and I thought that we should bring it to the board meeting, and I would like to see us approve this, even though by all press reports, the governor has backed down from what he was planning to do. It's may or not be not entirely, and nothing is final until the budget gets passed. And even though the maneuver would not necessarily directly affect us, basic aid districts are often also in the crosshairs when budget times get tight. So I think out of solidarity with our fellow school districts, it's incumbent upon us to sort of object when they're under the gun so that we can ask them to object if we ever get under the gun again. It's happened, it has happened in the past. Are there any questions?
I thought the word condemns was kind of strong,
Okay.
and I'll vote for the resolution regardless, but I would prefer if it was slightly softened, that we object to it or something like that as opposed to condemn seems strong. And I know that CSBA has probably approved this.
Yeah, I took
They wrote it.
I took their template.
Yeah. That's my suggestion, and the combined wisdom of the other board members.
The only reason, I mean, we're at that budget thing that they talked about it, where they said this was actually a huge step out of line.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It's unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional, so condensed to me, like, I agree with you, it sounds strong, I think it's actually should be strongly worded. I kind of like, think people understand why there are objections to it, It's kind of beyond a normal sort of budget maneuver. This is a significant something. So that I don't language, although I don't have rejection of something if you prefer something. I think condemns makes sense.
I would prefer to use the term condemn, because I don't want the governor going forward to think that he can balance the budget or raid the public education fund. I want him to know that we're taking a strong stand against what he's doing, and to not come looking at public education for his shenanigans.
Shouldn't, tis malarkey. I agree with Ellie.
I don't disagree with anything, except, the intent, what you're trying to say, and the intent of what the governor's doing. I just worry that there might be a reaction on his part.
I think he's already reacting by back stepping a little bit what he did. And he's seen these words from CSBA already. So I think he's heard the message loud and clear. I'd like to see the decision, everything signed and whatnot. I think keeping the heat on is a good idea.
I have a hard time believing that the governor didn't know that this was potentially unconstitutional and that districts would sort of like object to it. So my feeling is that you put this in there in order to be able to do something else. We'll take this out if you get that over there, if we get this over here.
But
I don't know what the,
I don't, yeah, that's an interesting idea, but he also was successful in doing a property measure on the ballot that this is funds from other organizations and lumped into a different thing for use in a different way. So it's not-
The buses
I'm
or
sorry, say that
something,
again?
the buses.
Yeah.
The proposition,
That
I
was
think we
cool.
just
Yes,
passed
So-
but
as a statewide. That didn't create new funds or anything. It took existing funds out of, from other organizations and dumped them into building these housing units for mental health housing. So he's already done this successfully once in a way, and no one raised their hands and made a big fuss about it. So I think maybe he was trying to see, can I do this again?
So can I build on what Steve just said? And the reason why I say we need to send a strong message to the governor, that you cannot balance your budget on the backs of our children. Because that same measure, he was going to take money from the Mental Health Services Act, including money for adolescent mental health. But it was the advocates for adolescent mental health who pushed back really hard. And so that's why the adolescent mental health funding did not get affected. Unfortunately, it's the adult mental health funding that got affected, but he tried. And he was back, and he was stopped by the advocates. And I feel like we're advocates for public education and our children. So he will try it unless we push back.
Okay. I don't feel strongly about it.
Okay, I think I'm fine with the existing language as well, so. Absent further discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
So.
Will happily strongly second it.
Motion to approve resolution 23/24-21 made by Vladimir, seconded by Shally. Absent any further board discussion, I will call the roll since it's a resolution. Steve,
Yes.
Vladimir,
Yes.
Shally,
Yes.
Jessica.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Brings us to H9, board policy updates.
Yep, so you have a handful, which I'm assuming this will be the last batch of the school year for you to read and let me know if you have any comments before they come back to you on the 10th. Thank you, Marcy. Marcy does a lot of work at keeping us up to date and keeping us in line to get these things going. It's great.
Okay. Don't see anybody jumping up, so we'll move on to I, board administration comments. Dr. Boston.
I just want to take a moment and thank Marcy for all of her help organizing the LCAP documents for this meeting. They're always changing, so thank you, Marcy. And then I also wanted to mention tonight we had our retirees. A week ago, we had all of our new teachers in the induction celebration. Oh my gosh, Greg Drummond, Sarah Gerlinger, and Jill Croft did a beautiful job hosting, but more importantly, the work that our new teachers are doing reflecting on their practice, picking case study students, picking inquiries to pursue with their kids so to improve their practice. It's priceless. And the district might look at this process like the LCAP, the compliance document, our induction process, thanks to Sandra's leadership and these folks, it's really high quality and I'm really proud of it. And it's fun to see the retirees, but it's fun to see the newbies too. And so thanks for all of your support.
Sure. Last Friday, Sandra and I were able to attend the rating agency meeting with Moody's. This is for final authorization. And we're really hoping that we can get an upgrade to a AAA. So we're hopeful. The rating agencies will, the analysts will look at our financials and we'll hope to get a rating by the end of next week. And then we'll be doing the final measure and authorization, I believe by June 23rd. Also, we had the district picnic at Cuesta Park last Friday, which was a great event. And very thankful for the maintenance and custodial staff who attended. They helped clean up and organize as everybody went on their ways. They stayed later to help put everything away. It was a really great event. Also, it was all the teachers and all the staff were here. There's just some limited people, but it was another way to recognize our great teachers and staff and retirees. So it's really nice. So, but a very nice way to end the year. And I'm excited to go to my first TK graduation tomorrow. And then I was unable to go to Block in Egan last year because my daughter was actually graduating 8th grade last year, but I'm really excited to see Block in Egan's graduation this week.
One more little update that I forgot, I put this in my Friday update, but Marlene Schafran is on leave right now, so we're very fortunate to have Jeff Bayer pinch hitting as our Director of Maintenance and Operations. He was here bright and early with his clipboard, cruising around the entire district. So we want to make sure we're up to speed for our summer camps and ESY and graduations and all the things that happen. So we appreciate him helping out.
I ran my last SBA meeting, which was a lunch and learn where we had Chris Reef talk to us actually about Prop 98 maneuver. And that was great to have that last meeting under my belt. And I did the farmer's market with Brian. Also did SCC SBA has a unhoused students subcommittee. And we met with Bridget Watson and Naomi Nakano Matsumoto of Sunnyvale and Fremont School District respectively. We met with Destination Home to really pick their brain about ways that we can learn from them about how we can make sure our students are getting what they need in housing such that they can be ready to learn. It's very important, we think, beyond just the classroom to see how we can work with each other. And actually, one of the things that came out of that is that we may try to do a convening related to that, possibly at the county. It's just at the very, very beginning stages. Another thing having to do with that very same committee is that there is a North County homeless shelter that used to be just everybody. It was a low barrier shelter. It has now been made to be a family shelter. And that is from the work of this committee. Actually, it's from the work of Bridget Watson, a lot of Bridget Watson. And then Naomi Nakano Matsumoto definitely knew the right people to get Bridget at. Because Bridget is very persistent. So that could be a place that families of ours go to. Anyway, so that's a lovely thing that's happening. And like many of you went to the Capital Advisory Budget Workshop at the county office. I look forward to the graduation.
You said, sorry, I thought we could do the scheduling thing for the 10th as we go through with everybody's comments. You said you're available all day.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
I mentioned this, our school district is a member of the API School Board Members Association. So last week, we held an event in partnership with the California Latino School Board Members Association at the Exploratorium. It was titled Making Science Accessible for Diverse Learners. And we talked quite extensively about culturally rooted science education. It was a really great event, and we really hope to do more with CLSBA. And actually, I wanted to share Sandra and Dr. Bosco the resources that the Exploratorium has, including some like free resources for teachers and professional development around culturally rooted science education. I'm looking forward to graduation with all of you, and I'm free all day on the time.
Great.
Let me check my calendar here. Nothing. Okay, I met with Jeff Bear and I heard all about his vacation. His travels around the world and how he spent 6 months out of the last 2 years traveling. And I was sick and tired of it, so I told him, oh, we'll see you later. But he's been, I can imagine him wandering around the district with the clipboard. Asking people, he must be a disaster. That's it. And yeah, that's it.
What's your availability on the 10th for the study session?
All day.
Steve?
So I mentioned the check, so there's an ongoing negotiations discussion. That I don't think we'll get back to y'all with an update until probably August now. This is just. But so just be aware of that, because of that, 4, 3 to 6 tied into that.
Sounds like study session that ends by 4.
Yeah, I'm wondering, we have a normal check-in with the architects at 2, if we want to do 2 o'clock, 2 to 3.
Everybody's free for it.
So, let's, I have no idea about this, but how much time do you think we'll need? Because right now you scheduled an hour or something.
Sure.
Do we need more than that?
Can I explain the process they've been talking about doing? So the idea was to give you a document to review what they've done to date. The next meeting, the 24th, the idea of bringing back the draft. Take home with you over the summer for reading, and then have you look at it. August 5th, our first meeting, bring it back on August 5th for approval. What for the summer.
So what's the first thing?
The first thing, they're just gonna go through the process, but they talk to you, give you some high level, what we're looking at. Some rough budgets, along the lines of what we're hearing earlier. There is this discussion of it being, how do we fund this long term? There's a little bit of that we're touching as well, just kind of like the foundation for all this, so you guys be thinking about it. Then they're gonna get down to the nitty-gritty of the master plan itself. And take home with you. June, where you take home for the summer. So that the binder idea that you from the budget. And so that's, but they wanted to like step you into the summer. Since you have nothing going anyway, we make sure you do that. Okay, that's kind of like the next couple of steps.
So this particular study session is just about,
Here are your questions. Here's work we've done. Get you guys' foundational questions on the table. Community can show up and do that.
Well, as I understood it, but the idea being that maybe we'd be in a iLearn where we have sort of more stuff around the walls, less sort of linear.
More interactive.
so what I was getting at was the amount of time, an hour seems fine. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So 2 to 3?
Yeah.
And I already did it.
Well, we'll get a,
Yeah,
we'll get a
well,
confirmatory
yeah.
email, I assume.
Yeah.
Sure.
If no one is in the room, then.
I want to email
Totally.
Brandon.
Then I should
Just
make
get
sure I'm
back
not early.
Yeah, we'll confirm with the architect that they are indeed available.
Okay, I was at the end of year barbecue, which was great. And I also volunteered for biking showcase. I know Steve also did,
Yeah.
which was also great. And the farmer's market, as Jessica mentioned. Okay. I also helped out with Science Olympiad at Santa Rita,
Oh,
which
nice.
every year I feel like I'll be able to hand it off to somebody. This year I may actually have found somebody. But it's fun. Okay, unless there's anything else, we are adjourned.